Muy buenas tardes y una vez más bienvenidos a esta conferencia de prensa con la que, como es natural, deseo comenzar mi intervención agradeciendo enormemente al Banco Europeo de Inversiones y de forma muy especial, como no podía ser de otra forma, a su presidente, el señor Hoyer, por haber organizado esta conferencia de alto nivel junto con el Comité de las Regiones. Decía el señor Hoyer en su reciente intervención que el Banco Europeo de Inversiones no era hasta hace no mucho suficientemente conocido, pero es lo cierto que no sé si porque la crisis ha contribuido a ello o simplemente, y me quedo con esta segunda idea, por la eficacia de la gestión, por el interés que despierta y sobre todo por su contribución al crecimiento de las regiones, el Banco Europeo de Inversiones en estos últimos meses, en estos últimos años, es sin duda alguna extraordinariamente conocido. Valdrá solamente un dato porque saben ustedes que además de presidente del Comité de las Regiones, soy también presidente de la región de Murcia. Valga un dato. Hemos cerrado muchos acuerdos, hemos firmado muchos préstamos con el Banco Europeo de Inversiones, pero querría destacar uno para nosotros fundamental, para los murcianos de extraordinaria importancia, puesto que que se firmó todavía no hace un año, iba dirigido a la recuperación de Lorca. Lorca es una ciudad de la región de Murcia, es la tercera ciudad en número de habitantes de la región de Murcia, una ciudad, por otra parte, histórica, monumental, muy artística, cargada, por tanto, de historia, pero que ayer, justamente ayer, hizo 2 años que fue objeto de un terremoto que asoló gran parte de la ciudad. Gracias, entre otras cosas, a este importante préstamo en condiciones, como comprenderán, muy favorables, que suscribimos la ciudad o la región de Murcia junto con el Banco Europeo de Inversiones, disponemos de una cantidad nada desdeñable, importantísima, 185 millones de euros para poder levantar esa ciudad que literalmente quedó destruida como efecto de los seísmos anteriormente referidos. Por tanto, fíjense la importancia, la trascendencia que para la creación de empleo, para desarrollar proyectos a largo plazo, para construir infraestructuras que no dejan de ser un cordón umbilical que conecta a través de la llamada cohesión territorial, económica, a las ciudades y a los ciudadanos, con la Unión Europea, que deja de ser, por tanto, un concepto abstracto para convertirse en un concepto concreto. Fíjense la importancia que tiene el hecho de no solamente contribuir al crecimiento, al desarrollo de la Unión Europea en sus miles de facetas, sino también, y de manera muy especial, a algo tan humano y tan humanitario como lo que ocurriera hace 2 años en la referida ciudad de Lorca de la región de Murcia. Así pues, esto, señor presidente, señor Hoyer, sin duda alguna no hace sino sumar esa idea de más Europa, también se concentra en la idea y en el hecho de un proyecto que es realidad, de una contribución que se produce día a día a lo largo de tantos años como es el Banco Europeo de Inversiones. No me queda sino darle, desde luego, la enhorabuena por su gestión, que es valorada. Mire, cuando nos reunimos en este tipo de foros hay las lógicas discrepancias. Europa, entre otras cosas, es también la suma de diversidades, pero curiosamente, o no, yo diría acertadamente, no es precisamente este el caso. Nos hemos reunido a lo largo del día de hoy, hemos celebrado un foro de extraordinario interés, de alto nivel, en donde usted habrá podido observar, yo también lo he hecho, como aquí sí que la coincidencia es plena en torno a la buena gestión del Banco Europeo de Inversiones. Y pienso yo, y pienso bien, que algo tendrá usted que ver en esa buena impresión que causa este organismo, esta institución financiera, entre otras muchas razones porque es usted el presidente del mismo. Así pues, felicidades por su gestión y también agradecimiento por cuanto hace por el desarrollo de los pueblos de Europa.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your interest in this conference and in the work also of the European Investment Bank. When we talk about cohesion of Europe, and we come to the heart of the founding story of the European Investment Bank. And most people, sometimes even in Luxembourg, are not really aware of it. The bank was founded with the Treaty of Rome. It was invented in context of the Conference of Messina, which prepared the Treaty of Rome. And at that time, it became obvious that after the benefits from the Marshall Plan had been distributed rather unevenly in Europe, the idea of not a second Marshall Plan, but a long-term investment facility for the upcoming European institutions would be a good idea. And in the founding text, which is the Treaty of Rome, because we are the only European financial institution, multilateral financial institution that is founded in primary law, it says that the completion of the internal market, or the common market, and the leveling out or mitigating the differences in the development, economic development of the regions of Europe is at the core of the objectives of the bank. This binds us, as do the decisions of the European Council, which are guiding for us. So at a time when fiscal consolidation is an obvious prerequisite for economic recovery, and nobody of us wants to repeat the mistakes that have been made in the past and which became visible in the connection of the Lehman Brothers disaster, it is quite clear too that boosting growth, employment, and innovation is necessary at the same time, because this will decide about Europe's position in the globalizing world in the next years and decades, and at the same time it will decide whether our political leaders will be able to cope with the big challenges which must be met right now. Because when such a huge number of young people in Europe is unemployed, then Europe does have a problem, also a problem of possible limits of the patience of the citizens. And if the fragmentation of the capital markets, the financial markets in Europe continues, then in particular the small companies in the regions have a problem, because the common market, the basic idea of the internal market, is then at risk. So this is where the European Investment Bank comes in. You know that this is probably the most unknown bank and the most unknown institution of the European Union. But with some self-confidence, we can say that we are probably the biggest one, though, because with a balance sheet of more than €500 billion and a business volume almost 3 times the size of the World Bank, I think we should be in the focus and under the scrutiny of the public in the member states of the European Union. When the bank was forced, with very, very good banking reasons, and this is why the governors of the bank, the finance ministers, decided that, was forced to reduce the business volume to pre-crisis level in 2009 and to implement that by 2012, we were in the awkward situation that we had to reduce to 50 billion at a time when the euro crisis had hit us and when expanding the business volume would have been necessary and not reducing it. So it was a very courageous step by the heads of state and government at the European Council in June 2012 to pave the way for a capital increase of EIB. It has taken place since. The finance ministers have enacted that at the end of 2012. The national parliaments have supported it in most cases where parliamentary support was needed, or even supplementary budget were needed. We have always had the support of the European Parliament and the Committee of the Regions as well. And we cooperate very, very closely with the European Commission, because one part of the business model is not only to bring about very, very favorable loans or loans at very favorable conditions, but also to combine the lending activity of a bank with the granting activity of the European funds and European Union money. So combining these leverages the EU funds and thus brings about a huge economic effect. And we then combine that with our special asset of the bank, and that is the technical and scientific expertise of the bank, which is extremely proud of its potential, in particular in the field of engineering. So what in particular the regions need is to get access to funding, but at the same time they need also access to this combination of lending and EU grants, plus the technical advice in order to make sure that the projects picked are at the end of the day economically viable. And there have been so many bad experiences with PPPs, for instance, which went wrong because they were not sufficiently tested in view of their viability, that it really makes sense to bring these things together: lending, blending, and advising. Here I stop. We are going to increase our business volume now from 2012 to 2013 by 40% without compromising the quality of the loan book, because that is the basis for the very high rating we get from the rating agencies, and in particular from our investors. Rating agencies are very important, but at the end of the day, you need people who buy your bonds, which we issue at a volume between 70 and 80 billion per year, and we issue them around the world, 50% probably this year from non-European investors. In order to achieve that, we must not reduce our ambition when it comes to quality either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President.